I think Jed could go vegan. I see vegan potential. This could be a potential salad. This, constantly, is what this boils down to. I don't want to. Let's find out what Ed's up to, eh?
Could you not just eat vegan 3 times a day when you eat and then focus all of your other energy on these interpersonal relationships that you clearly care about and are of course very important?
I could, and I know this will sound cold to you, but ultimately I don't want to, and I feel that there is no obligation.
Whilst I understand that you don't want to, wants are not good justifications when it comes to the exploitation of others. The want in and of itself shouldn't make it morally permissible. Hi Jed, my name is Ed, and nice little rhyme, and it's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for sitting down and having a conversation with me. As you know, you're welcome. As you know, I have a banner and it says, "Why aren't you vegan yet?" I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about that question?
So as a libertarian, I believe that people should have the freedom to do with their life, body, and lifestyle as they wish. And I believe that I very much respect the fact that you're vegan, and I hope that there are businesses which cater to you, and that if there aren't everywhere, given how big the vegan culture is now, they're really missing out and they should hop in on it. Yeah. But I also believe that we should, those of us who do not care to be vegan, I think those of us who do like meat, since after all we are made with both kinds of teeth as humans, we do have both the carnivorous and the herbivorous teeth.
Why do people go down the apparent physiological adaptations? Why do they think that like, oh, we have the ability to do something, therefore what, we should do it? My opposable thumbs mean I can choke someone out. Should I? Should I just choke someone out because I can?
Yep. I believe that there should be no cultural pressure for us to be vegan. I believe that if we enjoy eating meat from ultimately different species, lower species, if they weren't lower species, then why haven't they destroyed us yet?
Okay, let's...
What? This is concerning. You know, you don't have to necessarily be inferior to just not destroy someone. People really kind of conflate the whole being superior, being more powerful, to just like what you have to, like what you can actually do in the scope of being destructive, which is very bizarre to me.
Stop there for a second. The first thing, just very briefly, Stu.
Stop there for a second. Oh no, Edward's having enough.
The teeth. Many herbivorous animals also have canine teeth. I'm not saying we're herbivores, biologically speaking, but just because we have canines doesn't provide us with a moral justification to harm animals. You know, we can do a multitude of things, but just because we have the capacity to do those things doesn't provide us with the justification to do so. The first point you made about being a libertarian was about kind of like, you know...
I know that he's a libertarian and there's this, you know, emphasis on freedom, you know, the government not stepping in so much, you know, not imposing laws, freedom of choice. But I think even then, libertarians understand that, okay, well, we can't have things violating the autonomy of others, surely. Are you really free if you're just kind of left for anything to happen to you? It doesn't seem like freedom to me if someone can just kind of take things away from you. Is, you know, a being free if there's nothing incentivizing individuals to not work with you? Without even criticizing the ideology, I think you can still be a libertarian who wants the interests of others to be protected and the autonomy of others to be protected. This person's just not actually including other species of animals in the framework. Surely? I don't know.
You know, individual sovereignty and the right to your own kind of like life and existence. But what about the animals? Why does our right to our own sovereignty and our own individuality and our own body, how is it morally justified to come at the expense of someone else?
So as a libertarian, ultimately, I believe that our government, I like the libertarian form of government, and ultimately it is the government. Government is a contract between individuals and a sovereign state. So,
but forgive me, we can have that like incentive and others like pushing us to not do something without the government even intervening. It doesn't have to be illegal necessarily for people to not consume the bodies of, you know, other animals. Like, It's not a law right now. I could go down to the shop and buy any animal corpse in the kind of 5 specific species we exploit and kill. I could go buy their corpse right now and cook them up. It's not illegal. Yeah, I choose absolutely not to do it. I don't know, but you don't even necessarily need to be forced by law.
So that we do not all murder each other and we live in some sort of order.
Yeah.
And animals are not included in this.
Not currently, of course.
Well, they would.
Well, they actually kind of are. We do that with some species. We offer them some protections. There's some ramifications, like, for example, by law or socially, if you do violate the autonomy and rights of animals. No, it doesn't go as far as I think it should. It's not, consistent, and it doesn't extend to like all species, especially not the ones that we directly exploit and kill every single day. But it's not just humans who have these protections. Have we not heard of the RSPCA?
Would not be able to participate in, they would not be able to actively participate in any formation of a government.
But of course, when we're talking about social contracts, humans with a lack of certain...
Okay, so that's about like the act of them even partaking. And yeah, okay, it's about to give exactly what I'd say.
Abilities, they also can't engage in the social contracts that we're discussing. Are their lives less morally valuable because they can't engage in the same social contracts that you and I can?
Well, ultimately, they will eventually be able to, but also...
Not someone who's cognitively impaired in the ways that we're discussing right now.
Perhaps not, but they are also human. And ultimately, different species have different social contracts. Well, for example, how about if we're going to talk about animals in general, what about the wolves? Should we chastise them? Should we reprimand them for feeding on species which are lower down the food chain?
Animals in the wild who kill other animals do so out of necessity. They do so to survive. We don't.
And again, they kill within their own species. And he's just made a case for, okay, well, we couldn't do that to humans because they're still human. And then now is appealing to the behavior of those, other animals and be like, well, okay, well, they do this to each other. Would you tell them no?
Have that excuse. And also, we have moral agency. On the one hand, we're referring to ourselves as higher beings, they're lower beings. But on the other hand, we're trying to use what they do to justify our morality. It can't be both things. So animals in the wild don't have the moral agency that we do. Because we have moral agency, we're able to rationalize our choices and we're able to understand the positives and negatives of those choices. And because we live in a society where we have the choice to do something else, that's something else reducing suffering, then morally speaking, to me, that's the preferable choice to make. What do you think about that?
I guess first I would ask you, what is human morality? What is human moral agency?
Well, morality in its purest...
It's so funny when people want to go down to the meta-ethics because it's like, I'm sorry, you don't have to have that discussion when it came to, should we kill a human with these traits? You didn't have to go down the meta-ethical discussion of, like, what is this? You don't need this discussion. This is a complete distraction from the actual conversation. It's to try and make the vegan, I think, try and make them look like they don't know what they're talking about. Because when you get down to the meta-ethics, it's a very complicated discussion. Head hurty. Sense no makey. Okay? So to me, it's just a bit even if people aren't intending to, it's just trying to distract from the actual conversation. I don't like it. But it's funny how we're happy to have these conversations. We're happy and very much understand, doing that to an individual would be bad, for these reasons. But then as soon as the vegan comes along, suddenly it all falls apart. What is morality, though? Wolves do it, though. We are out in nature, though. We're just natural beings, though. We're all gonna die, though. It just becomes this. I'm just so bored of it. Shit.
Philosophical terms is, of course, subjective. I don't have a spiritual or religious belief that creates a definition of what is moral or immoral, but I think that we can, by and large, try and understand morality as being something that is...
See, this is specifically, I think, why this person brought it up, so that Ed then stutters. That's what that's for. It's suddenly you aren't as eloquent, because as soon as you get to meta-ethics, very few people can have that discussion. I mean, maybe I'm just because it's a bit too much for me and I've tried to understand it a lot. Maybe I'm projecting my inability to really go there. onto others. But it seems like as soon as you get down to meta-ethics, it's like, what the fuck? What is this? So, yeah, I think that was a sneaky question.
Seeking to reduce harm and suffering, something that's working to create a society that is more quote-unquote utopian, even though that word is, of course, impractical because it will never exist. It's about pursuing goals and aspirations that make life better for as many people and as many beings as possible. So reducing suffering, basically.
So altruism. Altruism.
I guess you could go down the route of altruism, yes.
So one question that I would ask is, if it came down to reducing the suffering or the hunger...
I don't even know if altruism, because I don't think it's considered altruistic to just not kill people. Just to not, exploit them or not pay someone else to do it. What am I like?
Of human beings and the, the death of animals, which would you choose?
Would I choose an animal over a human if the human is starving? Is that the question you're asking?
Yes.
If in times of necessity, you can morally justify something. So if a human is starving and requires, needs to kill a chicken to survive, then of course the human could justify that. But that's not the situation we're in. In an extreme situation, you could find reasons to save one life over the other. Case in point, let's say a building is on fire, and inside the building you have a 5-year-old child and a 95-year-old human. You could justify saving the 5-year-old child over the 95-year-old human because the child has their life ahead of them, all these different factors, but that doesn't justify needlessly harming the elderly in a normal society.
Yeah, thank you. Like, Jesus Christ. These freaking questions that distract from the actual behavior of, as far as I'm aware, either the sign... Does anyone know? It either says, why aren't you vegan yet? Or veganism is a moral obligation, change my mind, something like that. It's hard for me when it constantly comes up to just not see this as distracting from the actual accountability that person should have. It's like, all these questions, what is morality? All this shit. Like, but, you want them to be equal. It's just, I don't know if it's just because generally we haven't hashed out these discussions, so it doesn't seem obvious, but then when you've had it, that makes sense. But it just seems very obvious, but maybe my nearly 8 years vegan has blurred that ability for me to see that, that doesn't make sense in another context, so why would I say it now?
Same with the animals. We don't have the choice between a chicken and a human. If we did, you could definitely choose the human over the chicken, but our choice is human, chicken, or neither. And because we have the neither choice, that is the morally preferable choice to make.
But one thing that I want to return to is you mentioned that there shouldn't be a hierarchy of beings.
I didn't say that.
So you do say that in a time between choosing a chicken and a human, you would choose the human.
In a situation of necessity where I had no choice but to choose one or the other, you could find justifications for why the human life would be worth saving over the chicken's life. This doesn't disprove veganism, because veganism is the stance that in a situation where we have the option to not harm either life, that is the morally obligated decision to make. What do you think? When we have the choice between human, chicken, or neither, what is the morally obligated choice to make?
I believe and respect that. I believe that anyone should have the capacity to choose what they believe their obligation is, so long as they do not actively infringe on the rights of another human being in our society.
So now we need to find out what is so special about humans that means they are protected, but all the other species of animals, no. No, you can infringe upon their rights. You can do what you want to them. It doesn't really matter. Not making sense, really, is it?
Let's remove farm animals and let's go for any animal. Could I kick a dog, stomp a dog to death? Could I poach an elephant? Could I hunt a whale? Can I do anything to any other animal based on the fact that I am a human, and as a libertarian yourself, that's the only thing that has a sovereign value when it comes to species?
Has our society outlawed these things? Are we living in a society that has outlawed...
Does legality equal morality?
In my view, I do not believe that there is an intrinsic morality.
So just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's wrong or right?
I believe that ultimately a government comes together and they inform society of their laws, which are essentially the moral values and the moral codes to abide by, so as to make the
change, right?
Society.
Laws change, as do morals within society.
Exactly. because it is a top-down movement.
Yeah. So we challenge things regardless of the legality of those things. So just because, killing a pig is legal, but hunting, poaching an elephant is illegal, doesn't mean that killing a pig is moral and poaching an elephant is immoral. Because morality and legality, whilst they should be the same, of course we would think that they should be, in actuality, they're not.
Well, I would say that different people can have different opinions of it, and ultimately what matters the only thing that objectively matters is what the law is.
So what's your opinion then? Let's say a dog's...
Wait, but hang on. He's a libertarian. Am I just because I'm politically illiterate? But as far as I'm aware, libertarians, they don't want all of these restrictions. They don't want all of this law. So to appeal to law in that way, does that make no fucking sense whatsoever? Or, could someone please explain to me?
Walking past now, can I stomp that dog to death if I want to?
Is it outlawed here? What is the law here?
It's not. Let's say it's not outlawed. Let's say for a hypothetical situation, currently where we are, it's not outlawed for me to stomp that dog to death. What is your personal opinion on the morality of me doing so?
I do not operate with the idea of a morality, so I personally wouldn't. I don't feel the need to, but if you did, okay.
Outside of a legal system, anyone should be allowed to do whatever they want as long as they personally think that that's fine, and you wouldn't stop that.
That's why we created legal systems, because we were...
Oh my god. He's admitting to, that's really cringe, really.
We're going around and we would just go around and kill each other for a meal.
What about in cultures where, let's say, homosexuality is illegal?
Wait, what?
Let's say it's not outlawed. Let's say for a hypothetical situation, currently where we are, it's not outlawed for me to stomp that dog to death. What is your personal opinion on the morality of me doing so?
I do not operate with the idea of a morality, so I personally wouldn't. I don't feel the need to, but if you did, okay.
Outside of a legal system, anyone should be allowed to do whatever they want as long as they personally think that that's fine, and you wouldn't stop that.
That's why we created legal systems, because we were going around and we would just go around and kill each other for a meal.
What about in...
Is this person claiming that laws, that's why we created them, so we didn't kill and eat each other? What? I'm confused by that statement.
Cultures where, let's say, homosexuality is illegal, is homosexuality immoral in those cultures because it's illegal?
Well, that's also why I don't believe in moral systems personally. I believe that they are societal constructs.
So homosexuality would be wrong in those... Oh, you're involving the gays now. Oh, God. No, you're coming for me. Oh, you're going to have to bite this bullet, I'm afraid. This is where this leads you. Oh, I'm a wrong'un. I'm a wrong'un, guys. I'm a wrong'un. I'm fine right here, right now, where I'm at. But if they change the laws tomorrow, I'm just a wrong'un. And if I go to a certain country where it's currently wrong, I am a wrong'un.
Homosexuality immoral in societies where the construct is that it's illegal?
In that society, they have constructed themselves in that way that, yes.
What do you think?
I support homosexuality fully.
So you support homosexuality, but in a culture where it's illegal...
So if you were to, go and live there for a little while, wherever that culture may be, you'd just be like, suddenly now I appeal to the law here, and now it's wrong. Is this how it would work? What?
You think it's acceptable? Do you? Don't want to put words in your mouth. But so they should be challenged then.
I support challenging them. Yes.
Right.
What do you want from life, dude? Do we challenge them, or do we accept that, okay, well, that is the societal construct, it's actually not wrong, we shouldn't challenge because that's the societal... I don't know what's going on.
Outside of laws, we now accept that just because something is cultural or something is legal or illegal doesn't mean that it is moral or immoral, and we should challenge things regardless of their cultural or legal status.
You have the right and capacity to challenge them peacefully.
Okay, peacefully. Okay, great. So we accept that now. The important thing that we need to establish is that culture doesn't define morality, or, more importantly, something isn't moral simply because it's cultural, and secondly, something isn't moral simply because it's legal/illegal. Okay, great. So when it comes to animals then, for you, in your personal opinion, Is there any moral consideration that a non-human animal deserves? Do they deserve anything, any consideration at all?
They do not deserve anything. No, we can give them, but anything that we give them is grace. It is not something that they intrinsically deserve.
Why do humans intrinsically deserve moral consideration?
Because we are creating the society amongst ourselves.
Okay, but what is it about being human that means that we deserve more? Because that's not deserving, that's not intrinsic. You're saying that value to a human is created based on the society that we've created. But what about in environments where they haven't created the societies that we have? Is there something intrinsic about a human that means that we deserve value or should be viewed with value?
I think that we as humans can be more accepting, but in technicality, for example, within the United States, I believe that somebody who does not have a direct affiliation with the United States, be they, like you said, a work visa, or be they a permanent resident, or be they a citizen, technically they do not have any rights in the United States. You could argue something with like the United Nations, but they technically do not have any rights in the United States. But I think that we would be more favorable to them than an animal, because we do ultimately, humans have a potential to interact with human societies in a way that a wolf does not. The way that we, as wolves would not give us the rights.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
They'd also kill and eat each other. They'd kill like babies. Like they come out, give birth to some lovely little babies, they just kill them. Okay, oh, you're not mine. Death. What? What is this? Oh, this is depressing. Alicia!
Salads, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna Photoshop this guy's face with clown makeup.
That's irrelevant about what wolves would or wouldn't do. It's about what we do with the intelligence that we have. And again, I bring it back to the question I asked earlier. What about a human who has a cognitive impairment that means that they can't engage in society in the way that we're talking, that they can't engage in the things that we're discussing, that you say assign humans worth? Do those people not deserve moral consideration as well because they can't engage in the way that we're talking about?
I mean, they are definitely affiliated with I would say that they are affiliated with our society.
What do you mean by affiliated?
For example, do they have a if they have like residency, or if they have like just a legal affiliation with the United States, then they are subject to all of the laws and protections afforded by the United States.
So a human being's moral worth is based on the legal protections assigned to them as citizens of the United States.
Oh
so
my
before
God.
citizenship,
the objective worth. Now, personally, we can have differences, and we did discuss the whole argument of like a society which is homophobic.
Yes.
And I certainly respect your opinion that that you can be that like veganism is moral, and I am not going to challenge it. I'm not going to say that you are wrong.
Okay.
I am just saying that we can coexist.
Oh, we can coexist, we do. The problem isn't you and I, because I'm not the victim and neither are you in this conversation. The problem is the animal. They can't coexist in this scenario. So we're not talking as a victim and an oppressor, we're talking as two oppressors, or a potential oppressor and a current oppressor, and we're talking about a victim. And what I'm saying is that, what about their rights? What about their standing? Now, you're saying that they don't have those under the law. Okay, fair enough. But that's just because of the legal system that we have. Legality changes, as does morality. But I think when it comes to humans, what means that we have moral worth isn't the laws that are granted to US citizens. It's to do with basic things such as sentience, consciousness, the capacity to experience. When I stab, if I was to stab someone, it wouldn't be wrong for me to stab that person because they're a US citizen and they're protected by the law.
It's funny because Ed is not a US citizen, so he could be killed and eaten. Get him! This guy's just making a case for why he could kill and eat Ed. Steal his hair.
It would be wrong for me to stab that person because stabbing them causes them harm, and it's unnecessary for me to do so. The same is true of the animals. Stabbing them to death and cutting their throats is wrong because it's unnecessary for me to do it and for you to do it, and it is a non-consensual thing that harms them for a needless reason. They too have sentience and consciousness and the capacity to experience. They may not be protected by the law, but they still feel and still suffer and still have the capacities that that in my eyes surely must create moral worth for them as individuals.
I do believe that they have the capacity to feel, and I do also believe that we actually underestimate their intelligence, and but I will also say that, and this is the biologist starting to come in, the cerebral cortex, ultimately we have a greater ability to think conceptually, to think abstractly, which is why we're even having this discussion right now.
Yep. And we've shown examples of that humans on a baseline level can't necessarily always do that anyway. And wow, why does that suddenly mean? Like, you know, when I couldn't, you know, experience and as much as I can now and understand and have these discussions, okay, I still can't. So if like a genius is put next to me, or even someone who's remotely like average IQ, they come, oh god, below average, that'd be really bad. Yeah, if they were put next to me and they do better than me at having these discussions, am I suddenly like, I could be a sandwich now? Oh no, because human know, and humans, you know, they can do these things. Even when they can't, they can still do these things. I don't understand.
Than any other species, which
Does that justify arbitrarily harming them? You know, because we're saying might makes right. Because we have these cognitive advancements, because we're intellectually superior, we therefore have the right to dominate. Do you think that's true? Does intelligence and power create the moral justification to tyrannize?
Well, ultimately that is the question of human history, isn't it?
It is, and unfortunately, human history is fraught of examples of why that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
And it's still an ongoing conversation amongst humans.
Yeah, and so if you see it playing out, you see commonalities in this instance, why would you do this? Oh yeah, and it's happening now. Yes, it is happening now, and you're contributing to it. You're making the case for why it should continue. Damn!
So one question that I would have actually is perhaps...
I hope that he came away from this actually like, oh yeah, okay. You know, because we all make silly comments and silly arguments. Okay, you know, I have faith. I really do. But this is not impressive. This is not good. But it's understandable considering we, as a whole, as a species, we participate in so much exploitation, so much. We've made animals worth so much less than shit that it's going to be a big job trying to get people to understand, oh yeah, actually, you know, they're valuable as well.
Is veganism, is this the pressing issue when we still have so many cases of human rights? Is this the conversation that we should be having? Should we not perhaps wait until we have our house in order?
I wonder if this would be said about any other issue. Really, because I went down the street yesterday and I saw all these charity shops, all for different issues. And I couldn't help but think about veganism. How many times, if there were a vegan stall there, or like a charity shop, you could guarantee people would be like, why is this here? Like, shouldn't we be worrying about these other issues? Even though they probably wouldn't go into another one or look at another one and go, oh, yep, well, we can't worry about, like, veterans struggling with PTSD when we've got homelessness. Or we can't worry about homelessness when there's people starving in different countries. We can't worry about different countries when domestic abuse is happening here. And it's so weird as well when it comes to veganism, because all you have to do is just work out what you eat, work out what you buy, you know, outside of food. Go, is this an animal product? Is this tested on animals? Oh, this one isn't. Okay. I will eat this one, or I will consume this one because it's not tested on animals, it's not an animal product. Is this one? Oh, yeah, that is. So I won't have that anymore. I won't buy that. That's all you've got to do. That's the obligation.
Well, I don't think we'll ever have our house in order, unfortunately. But the point is, social justice issues aren't mutually exclusive. You can be in favour of multiple social justice issues and campaign on behalf of multiple social justice issues as well. It's not an either-or scenario. The thing about veganism is what we consume is passive. And what I mean by that is we have to eat. You know, we don't have, that's non-negotiable. Yeah. So to be vegan just means the 3 times a day where we eat meals, if we eat something else, right, now we can go and campaign on behalf of all these other issues that need campaign on behalf of.
Oh,
but if we
no.
just make that small change, we can not only...
This is what Lucia went off to make. I mean, this is some clown behaviour, okay? I feel like he could be on board. He's just not really. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what vibes I'm getting. I'm not sure. I don't know how to feel. I just feel like this is nonsense.
Reduce animal suffering significantly, but also human suffering. There are huge intersections between human exploitation and indeed the agricultural industry as well. So we need to attack all of these things, but we shouldn't just discount something because there is something else. We could discount feminism because there's still issues of human exploitation in the southeast or something of Asia. So there are all these different problems that exist, but we shouldn't discount one problem because another problem also exists at the same time. We should work to solve all of them. When it comes to the options that we have available in front of us, do you think that reducing the suffering of animals should be the morally preferable choice, considering that you acknowledge that they feel, and you also, and I agree with you on this, you think that we as a species discount their intelligence, and maybe do you think that because we do that, and because they also have the capacity to experience like you've acknowledged, that they should be given the moral consideration to not be needlessly exploited and killed, considering that it harms them in a non-consensual way?
All the same, I still do believe that the societally agreed pleasure of a human comes before the pleasure of an animal.
It's not about the pleasure of the animal, it's about their entire existence, it's about their life, it's about everything that they have, everything that's precious and valuable to them. We're saying that our pleasure is more important than their very being, and not only our pleasure, but 15 minutes of pleasure. We eat a meal, it's 15 minutes. We're talking about that 15 minutes.
Not even that, mate. I fully scran. 15 minutes, more like 5. Scran it right up.
Of pleasure, and beyond that we can eat delicious plant-based foods. So even if you were to say that you enjoyed meat 30% more than you enjoyed a plant-based meal, let's say a beef stew or a chicken curry or whatever it might be, and you say, oh, I'll enjoy that 30% more than I would a plant-based version, we're now saying that 30% difference in pleasure that lasts for 15 minutes is more valuable than someone else's entire life and existence. Everything that they hold valuable to them gone for 15 minutes of a 30% difference in taste pleasure.
When you talk about the life and actually
when you put it like that, someone sounds a bit like a dickhead for saying that's okay, really, don't they?
Actually brings me to perhaps the environment, ecology, and what happens many times is if you remove a predator, if the predator species dies off, then
I don't know why he's going down this route. I think he feels like he lost with the last argument, so it's gone here, and where he's going is not going to help him at all. In fact, it's probably going to demonstrate even more so why we shouldn't be mass farming and exploiting other animals.
People, the ones that would, I guess you could call them victims, and they are victims of like the predators of the high chain. They run rampant, and actually their own goods, they actually eat themselves out of nutrients, and actually it ends up being bad for the entire environment. So is it possible that, would you perhaps, do you believe that there is a possibility humans have a role in the predatory chain?
Well, not in the agricultural system that we have, because these are animals that we farm are either artificially bred by humans using their hands, or we facilitate the breeding and existence and procreation of these animals. So the animals that we farm and eat are not part of a natural food chain or a natural ecosystem. And actually, as you're probably well aware, the farming of animals has a huge ecological cost. The habitat loss, the deforestation, the land use. All of these things contribute to animal agriculture reducing wild biodiversity, which is of course a huge problem as well. So that context, no, the context that we support, definitely not, because that's not the relationship that exists. Actually, wildlife and the natural world would flourish if we eliminated this incredibly harmful aspect of what.
There's so many harmful aspects of animal agriculture to wildlife, deforestation, habitat loss, and then a lot of the time wild animals are killed to protect livestock. Prime example in the UK, badgers, they are killed because they're the scapegoat for bovine tuberculosis spreading, Obviously bovine, so between cows. And yeah, they get killed because, we have to protect the cows. The individuals that are being exploited, having their babies taken away from them, they're being mutilated, they're having, their lives taken away from them when they can no longer produce the product that they're being commodified for. We have to protect them. It's just, the wildlife suffers tremendously at the expense of the animal agriculture industry. So to go down this route of the ecology, environmentalism, as a non-vegan, trying to make a case against veganism, so bizarre. It makes little to no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it.
What we do, for industries and for consumption.
Then I have another question. I guess now the reason why people can talk about veganism legitimately being able to supplement you is because you are capable of having artificial proteins and supplements that would naturally come either from...
Sorry, what do you mean artificial proteins? Is he not aware that there's protein in plants? We don't have to have, textured vegetable protein. We don't have to have all of these things to get that protein. It just makes it way easier. Way, way easier. And why wouldn't you want to make it nice and easy for people, nice and accessible, have variation so people can, have more freedom? That's where I'd be like, that's a pretty libertarian thing. But...
from an animal or from an animal product, since veganism is also about the elimination of utilizing animal products. But what about for humans who cannot afford these supplements, especially the ones of the best quality?
That's what's even better now, because again, we have this study in the Western world that it can be up to 30% cheaper. So you can make it cheaper, you can make it work. And I don't know if this is including supplements, but say if it isn't, then you could probably make up that cost and ensure that you're getting all that you need.
I hear where you're going. Just want to stop you very quickly. Just on the artificial protein thing, we don't need to consume artificial proteins. We don't take protein supplements. You can take protein powders, but that's not a vegan, non-vegan thing. Lots of non-vegans have protein powders, and you get more than enough protein from whole plant food. So protein, no. Supplements, yes, you do want to have a supplement, and that supplement would maybe be like a B12 or like a vitamin D, which we should all have. Maybe less so in California, but generally speaking, most people should have a vitamin D supplement, vegan or non-vegan. When it comes to supplement quality, there's really not much discrepancy in quality, and you can get supplements that are less expensive than a piece of red meat, for example. But the more pressing issue is what you were saying about people that can't afford it. Not that can't afford a supplement, because the supplements, in terms of value and expense, is no different to buying, most things. But in terms of just a general affordability and accessibility, the reason I have these conversations here is because, by and large, everyone that sits down and speaks to me is in a situation where they can be vegan. There are people who don't have that luxury in certain parts of the US and, of course, in certain parts of the world. But that changes then. It's less of a moral obligation when it's not a necessity. But for you and I, because we can, that's where this conversation becomes especially pertinent, because we have that choice. Do you recognize that it is a choice for you, that you could be vegan if you wanted to be?
I do recognize that, yes.
That's really good. And so with it being a choice then, on what grounds do you think that it's acceptable to choose to inflict more harm onto someone else than you need to?
I recognize that on your grounds, it is unacceptable, but ultimately I have different grounds. I have a different worldview.
What are your grounds then? Define those. You may have already done it, but just for the point of this, reiterate what your grounds are.
My grounds are that in this, as humans, we form society because we realize that we are all better off if we work together, and that we can create our own goods. At the agricultural revolution, we are better off if we aren't worrying of somebody every night coming and just taking an evening's meal from us and our lives along with it. So that is ultimately the beginnings of society, and the freer a society, the more people are able to interact. I believe that we are actually better off. But ultimately, I believe that...
Does anyone else not know what the fuck is going on? Because it sounds like he's trying to say, okay, well, it's good to have animal agriculture because then, it's the beginning of society, but the beginning of the society was built on the backs of, not free people. I feel like I'm just being sent on this kind of journey, and nothing is happening. So, yeah. In the beginning, there was humans. We should just keep it that way. Okay, don't improve. Just be free.
that humans are sovereign and that we have the greatest abilities, and that if we did not, we would be proven wrong and the animals would have destroyed us.
Okay, well, I mean, the animals don't have the capacity to do that, but that doesn't make harming them acceptable. Now, what I would say, society has always changed. What you've described as being like the evolution and creation of a society, absolutely true. But society always changes, and thankfully it does, because there's never been a point in human history, and it certainly isn't now either, where society is as good as it could be. Society can always improve and get better, and importantly, we can always learn more, and we can always understand our relationship with others around us, and hopefully become better citizens and create a better world as a consequence. So society changes, and whilst currently, in the current society that we live in, these may be the contracts that currently exist, and this may be the situation that we're currently in. That doesn't mean that in the future we shouldn't then start to think about animals deserving moral consideration, because when we talk about issues of morality, it's always important that we keep challenging ourselves and learning from our past behaviours.
I do agree with that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And so I think we need to look beyond just these societal constructs. We need to look at something a little bit more intrinsic. And I think that intrinsic is empathy and moral agency. And whilst we could be, and I'm going to use the word pedantic, I know, I'm not saying that you are being pedantic, but I think maybe you are being a bit pedantic. We can be pedantic and create this kind of like construct that defines our morality. But ultimately, I think when it boils down to it, when we see situations of harm and suffering, that's not the rationalization that we have. When we see situations of harm and suffering, we empathize with those enduring that harm and suffering. And that's why I think we can understand that it's wrong, because we can understand what they're going through. So I think empathy is the cornerstone to creating a better society. Now, we can empathize with animals. We can empathize with their suffering. We can acknowledge what they're enduring. And because we can empathize with them, and because we know what they're going through, we know what it's that experience, it comes negatively to them. I think from a moral perspective, that's how society becomes better. Your life might not be made significantly better. From an environmental perspective, sure, animal agriculture is hugely environmentally damaging. So removing that is better for the environment and better for humans in that context. But even as an individual, although you may not feel a benefit within your own life for, the destabilization of, animal exploitation, the betterment to society comes from reducing suffering. And when we acknowledge that, I think suffering breeds suffering, and violence can breed violence. Slaughterhouse workers have mental health problems. They can become increasingly violent because of the work that they do. Society is negatively impacted by what we do to animals. And I don't think that we'll ever have a world, which I think we probably both want, which is just a nicer world, right? I don't think we will ever have that while we have facilities and places where we knowingly put billions, trillions of sentient animals through a process that we know consciously causes them pain and ultimately takes their life. And I think that's morality for me. It's about empathy and extending that empathy in ways that make practical sense, which to animals it does.
I may be allowed to give closing remarks. So I very much respect and I admire your arguments. I think that they are very well put together, and I do not disagree with them on your grounds. What I do say is that I think that we have a long way to go in terms of human relations and human societies, and I think that maybe this may sound like a kick the can down the road argument, but I believe that we would be better served focusing on our own species, and even within that, like the subunits of our own species, like our own societies, and then eventually our own species before we start considering others. But I do believe that we can have these conversations on a broader scale, policy scale, a couple centuries down the line.
A couple of centuries. I certainly hope that that's not the case.
When I don't have to take responsibility for it, when it doesn't have to affect me, let's hope that's all I hear when people say that. Like Sargon recently, like we looked at the video that he did he had a debate a while back with Chris Hines, and he was like, yeah, we'll look back on this and think, oh my god, that was terrible. But that's in the future. Okay, that's for other people to worry about, not me right now, because I want dairy in my coffee and I don't want to change, and there's something in my brain that's not letting me change. Like, just frustration.
Okay, just for the sake of argument, could it not be that for you, when you buy food, you just buy plant-based food and then put all of your energy into focusing on these other issues and focusing on creating better societies and better relationships for interpersonal relationships between humans. Could you not just eat vegan 3 times?
I think Jed could go vegan. I see vegan potential. This could be a potential salad. I just want him to know I'm disappointed right now. I'm not happy, and I hope this changes. Okay, this is what Jed. Listen. Okay, let my voice be delivered to you. Please, sort it out, yeah? Sort it out.
The day when you eat, and then focus all of your other energy on these interpersonal relationships that you clearly care about and are of course very important. But is that not just a small thing that you could do that just negates that aspect, but then doesn't take away from you being able to do everything else that you care about?
I could, and I know this will sound cold to you, but ultimately I don't want to, and I feel...
This constantly is what this boils down to. I don't want to. So let me just go off on a tangent for 30 minutes about things, ask you what morality even is, all of this stuff. Okay, this is just, a really interesting conversation for some people, but we do have to remember there are literally trillions of victims of, the outcome of this remaining the case. And there will be trillions who will, because we didn't sort this out. They will suffer as a consequence of this remaining the case.
That there is no obligation. But I feel that we could as a society agree that there is a moral obligation once we have our house mostly in order.
All right. We're going to have to wrap it up there.
Why do we have to, why do we have to wait for our house to be in order? And how is our house really going to be in order if we think that we can commodify sentient beings? It's just like the fundamental basis for exploitation and not having your house in order. Messy house. Messy, messy, messy.
Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Jed, I love that name, by the way. It reminds me of something. It's really good. But whilst I've got to go, but I just want to say, whilst I understand that you don't want to, wants are not good justifications when it comes to the exploitation of others. Many people want to do something, but that want shouldn't get in the fact that if there is a victim who's been harmed as a consequence of that want, the want in and of itself shouldn't make it morally permissible. Okay, maybe we'll leave. Thanks, Jed.
Right.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Have a great life as well, by the way.
Yes,
We'll probably never see each other again. All right, bye, Jed.
Yeah, well, hopefully, Jed. Oh, come on.
Yeah. Bye.
Oh, come on. I need the outcome. I need to know. Is Jed vegan? Come on. Jed, if you're not vegan in a couple of months, okay, we're gonna find you and have a chat, okay? Not in a threatening way, I just wanna know you're alright. Just wanna know what's going on.